All right, so what we want to do is we want to get rid of this cores plugin. Ideally, you shouldn't have to be turning this on and off to bypass the browser security that's built in. Ideally, the server should handle this. And ideally, the cores issue should be resolved by the backend. So we're just looking at some of our endpoints we created for watch list, to fetch the watch list, to add and to delete. What we want to do is we would like to add to the backend the ability to get the crypto coins and fetch them from that API. So the backend should really manage these calls to the CoinMarketCap API. And for any external API that you may run into, it shouldn't be the responsibility of the UI, and it should not be the responsibility of the browser to deal with this. And especially to deal with the cores issue, because remember Chrome and Edge, all these types of things now, they have built-in protection for security reasons. So ideally, we want to create our own endpoints that we can internally fetch the data from CoinMarketCap, and then the server can expose it to whichever UI we may have. So we need to go back to the dashboard and see where we do the fetch here. So let's just see where we actually do the fetch with the API key. So you can see everything's kind of exposed in the UI, which we don't want. So let's copy this out, put that in the clipboard, and we can it's probably best to create a module for this so we don't have it floating around the app.js. So let's create the coin module in the same way that we created one for the watch list. So we'll name this crypto coin module.js. It'll be a node custom module. You can take a look at how we did this with the watch list, where we had a couple named functions that were asynchronous, and then we exposed them. So let's do the same thing here. Let's just paste this here. So we'll create a get crypto coins, and we'll create this as a named function. Again, we'll use the 6 arrow functions here. We can use the keyword function if we want to, but for right now, we'll use more modern JavaScript. It doesn't really matter which style you use. At the end of the day, it transpiles down to vanilla JavaScript anyhow. So let's create some CRUD operations. Remember, if we're going to create a method, it's private by default. To make it public, we need to use, so we can export out the method itself, or we can directly export it, or we can use this module.exports and export an object of methods. So let's do side by side here. So this is the code we would like to move to the back end. We need to mark as asynchronous. Maybe we're not going to call it fetch coin data. We'll call it get coin data. And then we should grab the contents of this. So we can say fetching data that we can display into the node console log, fetching data from CoinMarketCap. Just taking a look at this method here. We kind of just want to grab the try catch piece, and let's wrap this in a try catch. Grab the exception and just console error it to the console. So maybe we're just going to display this piece here. And now let's just take a look at what we did in the front end. You can see we create the asynchronous fetch. So, and then what do? We wrap that response. So let's clip this out. Knowing that we don't have the API key in the backend, we need to move the API key as well. But here we go. We have the fetch. We have the JSON response. And we can close that out. Now we need to deal with this here. So let's just wire this up. We'll create a new GET request using Express to fetch, which will be the entry point for any caller. For our caller is our React application. We're going to create a URL route for /crypto coins, and that's going to be on the get action verb. We'll make this asynchronous. Again, it comes with the request and response. And let's just take a look how we did watch list here. So we grabbed the data from the module. So we're going to have to bring in the module, but we'll just call it data, and we're going to await the crypto coin module get method that we created here. So we need to bring this in, which we already did here. So you can see at the top there, get crypto coins is required in from .modules, crypto coin module. So we brought that in. So now we have it destructured. So we have the method available. So grab the data, await crypto coins. That will make the call out to the external API. And for now, we're just going to send back the raw data. That's all we're going to do. And then we can try to hit this endpoint to see that at least it's wired up. It'll probably throw an error here. So let's just test the watch list. The watch list is returning. So now we have a new method called crypto coins. That's a get request that doesn't take any request parameters. We're still running on localhost port 3007. So localhost port 3007, not 3000 here. I made a mistake here in my typing here. I'm going to have to go back and fix that up in just a second here. So let's put the proper port, 3007, crypto coins. So this is 200 okay. No data is coming back, but we know the endpoint is valid and it's there. So there's a problem you can see in the console log. So there's a problem, as we know, with that get crypto coins. It's doing something wrong. It says the API URL is not defined, and there is no API key as well. So it doesn't know where to fetch from. It doesn't know where this address is. We didn't bring this over from the UI. So we kind of need to go back to the UI and grab these constants. So if you recall, we had these constants in their own file. Where are they now? They're in the root directory here under comments out. So there's our key and there's our URL. They shouldn't be floating around the UI. Anybody could potentially see them, and we don't want people to see our API keys, right? If this is the public application, we don't want that. So we're going to drag this constant file, or we'll just create a new one here. Let's call it config. We'll make it a module. So we will just copy paste. So there's our key, there's our URL, and it's exporting node custom module. Now let's bring this into this crypto coin module. Let's bring in the URL and the API key. And by doing this, it's protected on the server. It won't be exposed unless we allow it to be seen, which is a level of security for us because it protects our sensitive hashes and keys, JWT tokens, these types of things that we want to keep to the server. It gives us a level of security by keeping it the responsibility of the server, because in the UI and the public app, anybody can use dev tools and potentially see some of our information. So we're just going to bring this in, and then we'll have access to this. So we'll have to find the module using require./config module. Those are exported out, so we should be able to import them in. So now let's refresh this. Mongoose is restarting. Core is enabled server, which is great. I'm port 307. Should be good to go. Let's try this URL again with Postman. And we can kind of move it to the side here so we can see if it's working here and watch the console in the background. So you can see there, we fired it off. It went to CoinMarketCap and it returned all this data. So we know this is working now. And the added bonus is we don't need to use that plugin on the server. Why? Because we already installed the Cores package and we already have installed it as middleware. So now it takes care of that security issue that we had on the browser. So this is good. This is where we want things to resolve on the server. We want the UI to worry about its UX, UI, user experience. So now when we trigger this, there's a problem now. It's the terminal is getting all the data. We need to go back and either dump all this data out to the UI, which we could certainly do. We'll probably have to clean that up though, because there's a lot of data there. So we can just return the raw data if we want to from our module. So our module was suppressing it, the module turning out the data, the module was just dumping to the console. So now we have the data coming back. And now let's see if we can get the data from our endpoint. There's a lot of data there. So raw data.data. Okay, so we're kind of unpacking it one more step. Let's see here. So, okay, we have the dump of all the crypto coins here. And on that object, there could be 100 properties. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of properties there. I'm not entirely sure how many. But for right now, we're just sending the raw data back. And the communication is working. Let's look back at the dashboard here and see if there's anything else that we missed. So let's see here in our filter, in our fetch coin data. So we replicated this. We can get rid of the call, the external call to the coin market cap. And we can tweak this a little bit here. So maybe we'll just create side by side, just a new one here. And eventually we'll get rid of this coin data. So fetch server coin data, market asynchronous. And what this method is going to do is make that API call, instead of to the external API coin market cap, we're going to be calling our server directly using the endpoint that we created. So fetching server data will log to the console. And then our method should be a lot cleaner and smaller. Let's take a look back at this whole thing. Probably may want to do try catch, perhaps. You can kind of see what we're doing in here. We're getting the raw data. We're setting some state. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a try catch. And we're going to need to set the same state there. So we're going to have to set the coin data, the filter data, the error, the loader. So we'll just copy the catch and the finally. Remember, the catch catches errors. The finally block will trigger after everything is done, and that'll control the loading flag. And then we can grab this part here where we handle the response, the same thing, and we're setting state. The difference now is we need to call our URL of our own server endpoint. So we'll go back to watch this and see how we do this here. So you can see here we fetch on localhost 3007. Again, we can clean this up if this went to production. We can have a configured API based URL if we needed to. But for right now, we're working locally. We can reuse this. So let's just paste this in. You're not going to be calling the watch list. We're going to be calling the crypto coins. So coin, let me get the endpoint correct, crypto coins. So that's our fetch request. It's a lot smaller and leaner now. And we're going to have to use this fetch server somewhere. So let's see this fetch coin data. We collapse that down and write in the use effect on mount and then directly call the server. And let's put this side by side here. Let's just minimize this here. So we are looking at the browser, and ideally we don't have to use the plugin anymore if we get this working properly. So of course it's going to reload, nothing's going to come back. But we need to make the fetch because it's not fetching anymore. So that's good. We unhooked it. We unhooked that method that we no longer want to use, and we're going to put our proper one in. Fetch server coin data. Now we should hit the server. And okay, we have no data. Now we probably do have data in the browser, but it's not the right format. But if you notice in the terminal for the node, you can see the payload coming back. And if we look at our dev tools, you should see the network request being made. And let's just take a look here at the network request. So if we look at the network request, we should see, if we refresh it again, the crypto coins comes in 200 with the payload. So the data is coming. We just have to manipulate the data into our UI. But this is a really good start and a really good improvement. Now the server is handling the CORS issue as well as handling that external API call. So the UI can just focus on rendering the UI in a good user experience. So this is so much cleaner now. We can try, oh, there we go. So if we just show the raw data instead of the dot data, we have all the data we need. So now we don't need this plugin anymore. We can turn it on, turn it off. It doesn't matter. It's unaffected. It doesn't matter if we have this installed, if it's on, if it's off. We can disable this and then uninstall this now. Now we're not relying on any bypassing in the browser. Now we truly have data from the server, and the server is dealing with the CORS issue and the security problems. So now we can remove that method call. And in fact, all of this logic that we use in the browser to make that external call, we can delete that method as well, just to keep things clean, and then go with our server call. So we can just get rid of this method all completely. And feels good to refactor, to be honest, because now we're taking the right approach here with our network data. So let's see here. So we may need to tweak it a bit because now we have a different payload coming back. So maybe we need to create something like a data type, a DTO, just to clean things up a little bit. But we have the data in the dashboard, and we can certainly clean up. Now, maybe what we need to do is do the same type of fetch. I see, let's see here. In our watch list, we had that coin data duplicated, right? So we were cheating here. Eventually, ideally what I'd like to see, like what we'll do is we'll let the watch list fetch this as well. Ideally, what I would like to see is perhaps creating state or caching, because for right now we load in a new page, we have to do a duplication of code, which architecturally works fine, and there's no issue with that. But an improvement would be, instead of having two fetches, well, you could centralize it, and it would work fine. But ideally, maybe if we fetch the data, we could store it in local storage perhaps, or we could use context API. But this is okay. We're going to fetch the data first and use the same pattern. We're going to get the raw data out, and then we're going to filter it in the same way. So we're just going to verify this is working. We're just going to refresh this here. Then you see the watch list is coming back in, and beautiful. It all works now. So we have no more reliance on an external call in the browser. Our dashboard is loading. Our watch list is loading. And improvement, it doesn't matter if this extension is on or off. Improvement might be, so we can remove this. We actually remove the whole extension. I'd like to see some caching eventually, but for right now, I'm pretty happy with the communication and a good improvement for building this out.